Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
The First Lady of New York Radio, Joan Hamburg. Entertaining and informative. Talk Radio 77 WABC.
Well, it's a very exciting day in Hamburg land because my radio husband of many years is with me. And I can't keep up with Arthur. He's, first of all, cooking up a storm is the word running throughout Brooklyn. People want to move to be near him so they don't miss lunch or dinner. Breakfast is another story. I actually don't know if my radio husband eats breakfast, but we'll find out. But the one and only Arthur Schwartz, truly one of the outstanding food people in the country, former restaurant critic. Arthur has done and is doing. Yes.
I'll do it. I was, for 1,000 years, the oldest, the second oldest living restaurant critic in America. Gail Green just died last week, or earlier this week, I should say.
Or
and
89.
So now I'm the oldest living restaurant critic and longest running. But I also was the editor of the food section of the Daily News when it had a really, like a weekly food magazine. And I'm going to flash. I've written 7 cookbooks. I'll get to that in a second. And I am now on an NPR affiliate called Robin Hood Radio, and you can listen to me by going to robinhoodradio.com and listen on demand. So about my cookbook. So I Joan, I cook every day, not every day,
but a lot.
5 out of 7 days, we have at least 1, if not 2, home-cooked meals. I just made lunch, in fact. I just made a pot of, only because I needed to use up some stuff in the fridge.
So what'd you make?
I made the base for a cream of broccoli soup. When I get off with you, I'm going to puree it and add some cream, and that'll be lunch today. That's a light lunch for us, actually. So,
but let me ask you, how do you decide when you cook like that?
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it was a big deal. Like, what am I going to make for dinner?
Always a big deal,
I'm
Joan.
sick of
it's
the same old thing. Well, how do you decide?
Well, that's it. I do get. Let's say I'm sick, but I do get bored with my own food, and I venture out, and then sometimes I'm going to add that to my repertoire, like a dish I made the other day, but. Most of the time I say, I better go back to my own recipes. And after 7 cookbooks, I have a lot to draw on. Plus, there's all the unpublished stuff in my computer. And I was into baking a few weeks ago. So I made a cake that it's called the Impossible Cake. And you know what? It was impossible. It came out terrible.
What was it?
I'll tell you, it's a funny thing. Apparently it's going around. It comes out, you bake it in a bundt pan, and it becomes half a chocolate cake and half of a flan, F-L-A-N, flan, custard.
I make that. In fact, I just bought.
You make that this impossible cake?
No, I make the flan all the time.
Well, so that's it. So the flan was delicious, but the rest of it was disgusting, and I ended up throwing it out.
Why?
So after we ate off the top layer of flan, which now became the bottom layer of flan. Anyway, and then I made another cake that I thought, this sounds really good. And you know what? That wasn't so good either. So in the end, I said, I really need cake. So I made my own apple cake that's in Jewish home cooking, which I knew was exactly how it was going to turn out. So anyway, I do use a lot of I do cook my own food, so to speak. But, I do get a little bored and I have to venture out.
And then do you rely on recipes that aren't yours or no?
Well, I do. And, I know I have some reliable sources. For instance, if I'm making something Roman or even Sicilian, because she goes to 2 places, I turn to Rachel Roddy, Roddy. Rachel, who I have had a few lunches with when I'm in Rome. She's an English woman who lives in Rome and who is partnered with a Sicilian rock musician.
Well, that's
and
a good combo.
Here's the best story, Joan. She had the Sicilian boyfriend many years ago. They broke up, and while they were broken up, she had an affair with somebody else, and she had the baby with somebody else.
Aha!
And this Sicilian is so 21st century that he is now parenting the son of her former boyfriend.
Oh my gosh! Only you.
Well, anyway, Rachel is the food columnist for The Guardian, the English newspaper, and you can read all her stuff online because The Guardian posts her column every week, and it's also archived. But she's written 2 cookbooks, and I have both of them. And the reason I have both of them, and let's start with the first one, which is called My Kitchen in Rome. And when that first came out, I wasn't reviewing cookbooks anymore, but I asked my cousin Erica, who was, did you get anything this year that really impressed you? And she handed me this book, and it was beautiful. And not only beautiful, with sort of real pictures, not staged pictures, but I look at I always do this. I look at the recipes I know and see how she did them, and it was like how I did them. So I thought, whatever I don't know, it's going to be good too. Anyway, and they are. And then after she wrote that, she now spends summers in Gelo, which is a town in southern Sicily, which is where they may be married by now, where her partner is from. And so the latest book is called 2 Kitchens. That's it. So her kitchen in Rome and her kitchen, and she lives in Testaccio in Rome, which used to be like a working class community, but these days is, I don't know, in a way it's sort of like the Park Slope of Rome.
That's funny.
Anyway, so I turn to Rachel Roddy.
And cook.
Sometimes, yeah, and it depends on what I'm cooking. I for Jewishy stuff, I have my own cookbook. And by the way, we hadn't eaten carbohydrates really for almost 2 years, and now we're off of the keto diet, and we're eating like normal people.
Was that a good diet for you guys?
Well, I lost 50 pounds, and Bob lost 25 pounds. Yeah.
I can't believe it. How long were you on that diet?
Well, I was on it for a very long time because besides that I lost weight, because I was not eating any wheat products, my arthritis got better.
Isn't that amazing?
And also, my blood sugar is like normal, even though I'm diabetic, and I take a medication, but I have very, very low A1C. It's even lower than Bob's, who's not diabetic. What?
That's unbelievable.
Well, it's not unbelievable. That's what the diet is for.
So you had no pasta or any of your...
I had for 2 years, Joan.
Oh, Arthur.
Not only that, I gave it away. I mean, I had like enough pasta in my cupboard to open a store.
I can imagine.
I ended up giving it all to my housekeeper because I didn't even want it in the house. And I'm not, but I'm eating other carbs. So I was about to say, I was craving. This is a funny thing to crave, but I have funny cravings. Kasha varnishkis.
Oh my gosh! You know how many? I won't even tell you. I don't think I've had it since I was a child.
Oh, come on!
No, I don't.
Well,
I didn't have
I
it.
love it, and I make it frequent. I used to make it frequently. I grew up eating kasha. I had Russian, I should say, grandparents of Belarus descent, because at least my grandmother was born in Brooklyn. But we ate kasha, and my grandmother would make, and my mother too, would make kasha all the time to go with pot roast or on a holiday brisket, unless it was Passover, and then we would eat the juices and the onions from the pot roast, the gravy, on top of the kasha. Only on special occasions did my mother and grandmother make kasha varnishkis, which refers to the varnishkis part, refers to bow tie pasta, or egg noodle, actually.
Right. Tell what that one is. It's got the Kasha the noodles.
Pardon me?
Explain what that is.
Well, bow ties, like
bow
Italian
tie
bow ties,
pasta.
farfalle in Italian. But we call, in English we say bow tie pasta. And the bow ties, actually, it's a pinched it's a flat, the bow ties are a ribbon of pasta that's been pinched in the middle. And what I love about them, and I must say I'm into them lately, is that they provide two textures in one bite. You get both a slightly al dente, where it's all pinched together, and the softer, where it's the wings, so to speak, of the butterfly. Anyway, so you mix kasha. I'm going to quickly give you a recipe.
Okay.
All right. The thing about kasha is it clumps together unless you do this preliminary thing, which is to beat up an egg and stir in 1 cup of kasha. I do this right in the pot that I'm going to cook the kasha in, which is a saucepan, 3-quart saucepan, let's say.
And you can buy that anywhere, right? The
kasha is in every supermarket,
okay.
At least in the New York metro area.
Okay.
Wolf's is the brand that most supermarkets carry. Since I live in Brooklyn, where there are a lot of kasha eaters, I can buy other brands, but Wolf's is an excellent brand, and it comes in whole kasha. It's groats. By the way, kasha is buckwheat groats. What it is the seed of buckwheat, which is sort of a kind of grass to oversimplify. It's not related to wheat at all, and it is gluten-free. It's a gluten-free grain. So you can buy kasha in whole groats, medium groats, fine groats. I think there's also a coarse-cut groats. I happen to like the coarser rather than the finer. What I made the other day was with the finer because it's what I had in the house, and I want to actually use it up. So you stir in a beaten egg and put it over medium-high flame and stir it. It only takes a couple minutes until the kasha is no longer clumped together from the egg, but separate now. And then you add your hot liquid. In my case, I added what did I? I happened to have beef broth, so I added for 1 cup of kasha, you need 4 cups of liquid of broth, and I put that in. Salt. Cover although my beef broth was well salted, so I didn't add salt, but so you got to be careful there. And then you cover the pot, put it over medium heat, and 10 minutes. It's all the liquid has been absorbed. The kasha is all fluffed up, and then with a fork, fluff it all up, and stir in. For a cup of kasha, I used a pound of onions.
Wow.
Sliced and fried.
What do you
and I like to fry the onions until they're really dark.
Okay, that's the way I make onions too. What do you fry them in?
It's such a Jewish taste, I got to say.
Yeah, like overdone everything.
Yeah, well, not overdone everything. I'm sorry, I don't go for that.
I know.
But definitely well caramelized onions, to use current lingo.
What do you cook them in?
Well, for kasha varnish, it's usually just vegetable oil.
Right, a neutral oil.
A neutral oil, right. I happen to have some schmaltz in the refrigerator, and I was tempted to do that.
Fat.
But I didn't. Yeah, chicken fat. So anyway, that's it. And then you stir in your fried onions, and for that I used, let's see, you know what, I do weigh my pasta these days because I don't want to overeat pasta, and you think you actually want more than you need. So I think we were 3 people that day, so I measured out 6 ounces of pasta, 2 ounces each person, boiled it up until it was tender. I did not use all that kasha for that amount of bow ties. I had leftover kasha, and I must say it reheats extremely well. You either put it in a covered dish in the oven, like if you're making something else in the oven, or you can put it in the microwave. It microwaves very well.
Right. Is it a main course, or do you serve
kasha
it?
varnishkis was lunch for us, for me, for Bob, me, and my next-door neighbor.
Okay, lucky next-door neighbor.
Well, Ellen is a doll.
Are you?
We had to say that we're neighbors now for 24 years, John. I've been here 24 years.
Hard to believe. I remember the Tudor Place apartment.
In Tudor City, right?
Tudor City. With
Yeah.
I know.
Anyway,
that was
time
a long
goes
time
by.
ago. It does. So, do you make meat at all?
Yeah, I do. Let me say this, though. Both Bob and I have had some dental issues lately. So, and he's a baby when he gets sick. I'm not so bad. All men, I think, fall into two categories.
Right.
They're either hypochondriacs or deniers. I'm sort of in the middle, I got to say, but he's big on being a hypochondriac. He enjoys it. So anyway, we had to eat soft for a few weeks. I did too, because I was having a dental problem too. So we haven't eaten much meat lately, but I still love a great steak. And
do
I
you
still
make
love,
it home, or you say
Well,
out?
I don't go out too much these days, but that's the one thing I would like to go out for is steak. We have some great steakhouses in Brooklyn, and there's a new one I'm eager to get to called, I haven't been there, but I think it's called Gus's Grill, something like that.
Where? In Brooklyn Heights?
No, it's, I guess they call that Carroll Gardens. No, but the place that I swear by is not Peter Luger, by the way, but it's not so far from Peter Luger. It's called, I want to say Di Stefano. God, my memory, Joan, is just not what it used to be.
No, we need it. So don't give it away yet. It will come back. Have you been?
No, it'll come back in a minute. But the thing is, there are two with similar names that I keep getting confused. Di Stefano's is on. No, this is the other one. Oh, yeah. So yeah, Di Stefano. Anyway, there are several reasons that I love Di Stefano. First, of course, the meat's incredible, and not just steak, not just beef, but they have an unbelievable pork chop too. So that's one. Two, they could not be nicer.
That makes a difference.
It makes a huge difference. I have a friend, remain unnamed, who's very hard of hearing. And his doctor told him that when he goes to a restaurant, especially a noisy restaurant, he should try to sit in a corner with his back to a wall right by him. Whatever. So I call the restaurant and I say, I know, because I know the layout of the room. I said, I know the blah, blah, and can we have that table? Absolutely. So I'm going to put your name on it. And then I had a call back for some other reason, and they were still very nice. And so when I got there, I said, I think her name was Claudia. Where's Claudia? I want to thank her for being so nice. And I went up to Claudia, and she said, you just got me on a good day. It was that kind of friendly answer. Anyway, and then the tables are widely spaced. There is no music on the sound system. You can talk to your friends.
Unbelievable.
Right?
Yes.
And also, they're in a corner of Williamsburg, or maybe you want to call it Bushwick. I'll tell you a cute story about that. Where you can actually park. So I just take the car.
Perfect.
10, 15-minute drive. So the thing is, the first time I went, the friendly waiter was chatting with us, and it came out that he lived in the neighborhood. It was a great job for him. He could walk to work, blah, blah. And he was obviously a hipster. And I said to him, well, where do you live? He says, I live they now call it Bushwick, but when I moved here, it was East Williamsburg.
Oh, gosh.
No, originally it was Bushwick, but now they're calling it East Williamsburg.
Yeah, of course, perfect, right?
You get better rent, I guess, in East Williamsburg.
You've got a very chic neighborhood.
Yeah, well, I don't live there, but I do live in a nice neighborhood, but it's not anywhere near there. Joan, I have to give you a Brooklyn tour.
I know.
It's about time you familiarized yourself.
Well, don't forget, my husband was brought up on Crown Street, so we used to go back, but we called Persistence of Memory tours.
Well,
but it's not the same.
No, Crown Street is beautiful. That is near me. That's just the other side of Flatbush Avenue.
Yeah.
And I always say, I have been saying, I've always lived, except for my years in Manhattan, I always lived within 10 blocks of Flatbush Avenue, and now I can see it from my bedroom window.
Oh.
So it's just down the avenue. By the way, speaking of just down the avenue, there is a restaurant. There are a few restaurants that I swear by.
Which ones?
But there's an Azerbaijani restaurant on Coney Island Avenue, and Avenue P, where I've been going for pre-COVID, anyways. So a number of years now. Great food, great prices. We usually go for lunch, but on the weekends it's crowded with a lot of Russians and Ukrainians.
Yeah, what kind of menu?
Well, if you like meat, it's a good place to go. The Azerbaijani make incredible grilled meat, but even chicken. The chicken, I mean, I swear by the chicken there. I never order chicken in a restaurant usually because I make my own chicken. But there we eat chicken. Lulya kebab, which is the little ground meat kebabs, they're sensational there. And they come wrapped in a very, very thin flatbread, so you can eat it with your hand in this flatbread. They have a salad, a sweet and sour eggplant salad topped with feta cheese and nuts, walnuts. Wonderful. There are a few Russian things. They make great soups. In fact, one of my friends usually goes home with the cream of mushroom soups because that reheats very well. They make borscht. They make an Azerbaijani soup with lamb ribs in it.
Oh, that sounds good.
They make, I am always looking for somebody to eat organ meats with, and ends up almost nobody I know eats organ
Even
meat.
liver, like calf's liver?
Well, the liver I eat at a Turkish restaurant. You know, they make the little cubes of liver.
I love that.
And my favorite Turkish restaurant is right across the street from, by the way, the Azerbaijani place is called Village Cafe, and they have a tiny parking lot. But recently, they decided to rent out some of the spaces in the parking lot. So there is often no parking in the parking lot in front of the restaurant. However, because I'm a regular there, they let me park and block in the people who are renting spaces. It's just that I have to go out and move the car if somebody
But that's
comes.
annoying. But it sounds
It's not annoying to me. It's better than having to search for a parking space.
Exactly.
Anyway, and they have and the same guy who owns the restaurant owns a liquor store, which is also on the parking lot, and you can BYOB there.
Oh,
so anyway,
okay.
for a lot of reasons, so they have a dish called Rizzi Busy, which is several different organ meats, including testicles, gizzards, liver.
I hate to tell you.
Whatever, all sautéed together with potatoes and onions.
Well, I like the sauteing with potatoes and onions, but we could do without some of the...
Yeah. No, well, that's the problem. I can never and it's too much for me to order for myself. So I'm always looking for somebody to go there with me. But the new place, which is closer, we may actually go there today for lunch, even though I made this soup. There's Pete Wells reviewed this in the Times last week.
What was it called?
It's called Dunya, Dunya, and it's an Afghani restaurant. It's the only Afghani restaurant in Brooklyn. And Bob and I used to go to an Afghani restaurant on St. Mark's Place in the city, in Manhattan. And we actually became friendly with the owner. They closed a long time ago. And since then, we've been craving oshak, which are these Afghani dumplings, steamed dumplings, filled with scallions and leek.
Wow.
And then dressed with a yogurt sauce and if you like, a drizzle of meat gravy.
It sounds so. Many years ago, you and I had Afghani dumplings when we were doing for a short time our Saturday show.
Well, there you go. Maybe it was from then. It was called Cafe Kabul.
It was so good.
It was so good. So this is the first. I mean, by the way, years later, our Turkish restaurant, the owner, so it's called Taci's Beyti. This really, really good Turkish restaurant on Coney Island Avenue. The owner, Taci, he's dead several years now. His son, son, runs that restaurant. But then all of a sudden, and Taci got lung cancer, went back to Turkey, got was remission, didn't stop smoking anyway, but went to, he pops up on Metropolitan Avenue in Queens. So I said, what are you doing here? He says, well, I opened the other restaurant for the eldest son of my first wife, and I'm opening this one for the eldest son of my second wife.
That's funny. So
he was in there for a while cooking and teaching whoever is cooking there now how to do it all. So one day he said, my wife is Afghani. I said, oh, does she make orshak? Oh, yeah. She'll make you an Afghani meal one night. And so one day we went out to Queens and she cooked for us. It was wonderful.
It good?
No, it was wonderful. A memorable night, too. So anyway, this place is terrific, has a very hospitable owner, is very nice. Dunya. It's on a totally nondescript block of Coney Island Avenue. I had a laugh when Pete Wells said, "Oh, they have this strip of Coney Island Avenue is mainly body shops and whatever." Well, my father was an auto mechanic, and when I was a kid, we had to go to Coney Island Avenue all the time because that's where all the parts houses were.
Mm-hmm.
Where they sold.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Everything.
So, and now there are still a remnant of all those auto service places. And by the way, good gas prices.
Yeah, well, better than we have. By the way, who's
Who's
butcher?
we? You mean the Hamptons?
No, New York.
Well,
too.
I don't know. I don't know what the price of gas is in New York, but here it was down to $3.39 the other day.
Well, it's funny that we consider that a bargain.
Well, it's okay.
It is. It's okay.
Let me say, let's segue to food prices, which is more my bailiwick, because I know nothing about gas prices except how much they are. But we have a new supermarket in the neighborhood, brand new, just opened a week ago.
What's it called?
Well, it's actually a division of Key Food, but it's called Food Universe Marketplace.
And?
Which I consider a really stupid name. So Bob and I have decided we're just going to call it Key Food. Yeah. Because if you go to the website of Food, whatever I just said, Food Universe Marketplace, you end up at Key Food. And Key Food has a house brand called Urban Meadow. That's the key. If you go to a supermarket, even if it's not called Key Food,
look for that.
And they have Urban Meadow products, which, by the way, are mostly one things I've tasted have been very good. That's the Key Food house brand. Anyway, I go into the supermarket, and, the prices are high. And my neighbor next door, she said, oh, well, I'm not going to shop there. The prices are too high. Here's the deal. Those are the new prices. It's just that the older supermarkets have stock that still has the old prices on it. This is just open, so everything is the current price. And the current price is high.
Very high. Anyone who shopped for turkeys are going to be in.
I know, but I must say, I am a very fortunate man, and I don't have to really think about what I'm spending on food. But still, I'm very cognizant of food prices,
gone on. Yeah.
And I'm a good shopper. So I go to this new, what my neighbor thinks is expensive supermarket that isn't, and I find they have those big bags of mandarins, which I love.
I just bought one.
What'd you pay?
You know what? I don't remember.
Yeah, you probably aren't conscious of it either. I paid $2.99, which I know is very cheap.
Very.
Yeah, and then you got to be a good shopper. The other thing is like meat. I couldn't believe that their meat was as well priced as it is. Now all of a sudden, beef is looking not so bad.
Yeah. And anyway. They have what, Prime or Choice? It's not.
Listen, it's not my first go-to for meat.
Good steak.
But here's what I did find. Listen, we have this very snobby butcher opened in Prospect Heights. It's only a few blocks from me, and they charge $3 a pound for chicken backs, which I use to make broth. Joan, I get insecure if I don't have broth in the freezer.
I know how you feel. I do too.
So, and I ran out of broth sometime in early August. So when it was finally cool enough to have a pot going for 6 hours. Anyway, so they charge $3 a pound. My butcher, who I buy them from all the time, a real butcher, he charges $1.50 a pound, and they're frozen because he bones out a lot of chickens. And for broth, it's okay for them.
Sounds good.
The new supermarket's 99 cents a pound.
You're kidding. That's
no,
a bar.
So I bought 10 pounds, and I now have enormous quantity of broth, a really good broth, I got to say, which I use to make my soup for lunch today if we eat it or not.
When you make your own chicken stock, which I do too, it all started when my husband would insist on poaching chicken for the dog. And
I remember this.
You remember? And I would have more chicken stock than any living person because he insisted the dog eat 3 meals a day.
Well, of course.
He absolutely ruined the dog because she's not eating anything else but organic chicken. At one point, he said he'd only buy kosher chicken for the dog because it was fresh. He was, with that dog, he went crazy with the dog. Anyway.
Yeah, but why kosher?
When you make your own chicken stock, you put all the chicken backs. Do you do vegetables in it too?
Yes.
Like carrots?
What I do is I throw it all in a pot with plenty of water to cover it. You can always cook it down later.
And what vegetables?
And then, no, I don't do that yet. I bring it to a boil first and skim it for usually a good 15 minutes of skimming.
All right, that's the chicken backs.
And then I add carrot, onion, celery.
That's it.
I don't add greens, no herbs, because it turns the broth greenish. If you want that, you can add it at the very end. I don't put in parsnips. I'm not making Jewish broth. I want it to be very
strong,
generic broth, so I can do anything I want with it. So for the 10 pounds of backs, I put in it was a substantial onion. It could have been a 7 or 8 ounce onion. It was a nice size onion, which I quartered and threw in the pot, and 2 nice sized carrots, which I peeled and quartered and threw in the pot. And then celery. I had really nice celery, I got to say too. So I used at least 2 ribs outside ribs of celery in the pot. And that was it. And peppercorns, I would say about a teaspoon of peppercorns and a few cloves.
It sounds really good.
That's it, and salt.
I love the way it sounds, and I love talking to you.
And then I cooked it for 6 hours, Joan.
Oh, my gosh.
Which, I put it up at 6.
Low?
And pardon me?
At a low heat?
Yeah, so perking away. I have a stock pot. So at one point, sort of like after 3 or 4 hours, I had to top it off with some more water, but my pot doesn't really encourage evaporation. So I could do it 6 hours and not even look at it.
Right, that sounds great.
And before I went to sleep, I turned it off, left it on the stove to cool, got up in the morning, strained out all the solids, which I do with a strainer, and I have a napkin, an old linen napkin I've been using for years to do this with. And that's it. And then I put it in the fridge. And then once it's chilled, I skim off the fat.
Sounds good.
And then, by the way, my broth, they sell this bone broth, which I think is
in my neighborhood, we have a bone store.
Let me just say, bone broth is bullshit. I don't know if I could say that on your station, but
you
it is.
Did.
But I did. Well, bigger people than me have said it. Anyway, point is, all that is cooked long enough so that the bones give off their collagen, and the broth itself should gel. And I had a hard gel on this broth. Cooked 6 hours.
Wow. Sounds good. No one does it better. Arthur, we'll talk again. Arthur Schwartz. I miss you, and I love hearing you talk and all about your food adventures.
If I don't do anything, at least I cook.
You cook, and no one does it better. Thank you, Arthur. Said
practice
love to
makes
Bob.
perfect.
Yep.
Have a great week, Joan.
You too, honey. I'm Joan Hamburg. You're listening to WABC, and more to come.